Don't listen to Hezekiah when he tries to mislead you by saying, "The Lord will rescue us." Have the gods of any other nations ever saved their people from the king of Assyria? What happened to the gods of Hamath and Arpad? And what about the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Iva? Did any god rescue Samaria from my power? What god of any nation has ever been able to save its people from my power? So what makes you think that the Lord can rescue Jerusalem from me? It's almost like he's trying to coerce the people into just willingly defecting or submitting to Assyria before he goes in and sweeps away whoever's left, making them even weaker and making it less of a problem to do the latter part of that. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright, so we're looking at 2 Kings chapter 18. The big thing that happened in recent chapters is that the northern kingdom of Israel has been taken over by the Assyrians. So, yeah, at least Israel and Judah won't so much be fighting each other anymore. But, you know, I would not assume the Assyrians are going to stop. So that might become a thing here in a little bit, but we should probably just read on and see what happens before I spend too much time speculating. So here we go. 2 Kings, chapter 18. Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, began to rule over Judah in the 3rd year of King Hoshea's reign in Israel. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestor David had done. He removed the pagan shrines, smashed the sacred pillars, and cut down the Asherah poles. He broke up the bronze serpent that Moses had made, because the people of Israel had been offering sacrifices to it. The bronze serpent was called Nehushtan. Anyway. Okay. So, while we've had a number of kings in Judah, personally follow the Lord, not many of them have gone this far as to, remove all or even most of the idol worship going on in the land. So, as far as dedication to God, we're talking, top tier with Hezekiah here. So of course he started his rule as king while Israel was still intact as its own kingdom. But based on the timing, I'm pretty sure he lasted as king of Judah for, plenty of time after Israel was, taken over. Footnote there, as in parallel text at 2 Chronicles 29:1, Hebrew just reads Abi, a variant spelling. I mean, that sounds almost more like a nickname kind of deal. Hey, what's your name? Abijah? But my friends just call me Abby. Something kind of like that. Also note at Nehushtan, which was the bronze serpent. Also, interesting note there that people started to worship the bronze serpent that Moses had made. I mean, if I recall correctly, it was made in response to a situation where, they had been bitten by snakes and they had to, look upon this statue, figure, whatever it was, in order to be healed from, the venom or whatever. Which, I mean, with a memorable event like that attached to it, and it possibly being a sign of, healing and deliverance, that almost kind of makes sense that people would start to do that, especially if they forgot that, you know, it was made by Moses, you know, per the Lord's command, and that it itself was not supposed to be an object of worship. But anyway, Nehushtan sounds like the Hebrew terms that mean snake, bronze, and unclean thing. So does that mean it's one of those, like, combo word sort of deals? Sort of like you get with, I'm trying to think of... like, just as a funny little example, I know the one school that my sisters went to, and I think that I went to, or my younger sisters went to, they had this one particular room that was used as a multi-purpose room, so they'd call it like the Cafegimatorium. I wonder if this is one of those same sort of like word mashup sort of things. But anyway, this chapter's not exactly super short, so let me keep moving along here. Verse 5. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before or after his time. He remained faithful to the Lord in everything, and he carefully obeyed all the commands the Lord had given Moses. So the Lord was with him, and Hezekiah was successful in everything he did. He revolted against the king of Assyria and refused to pay him tribute. He also conquered the Philistines as far distant as Gaza and its territory, from their smallest outpost to their largest walled city. So, I talked a bit about Hezekiah's dedication to the Lord. It spells it out even more plainly here, and it mentions that God was with him because of it, and gave him success. Okay. Verse 9. During the 4th year of Hezekiah's reign, which was the 7th year of King Hoshea's reign in Israel, King Shalmaneser of Assyria attacked the city of Samaria and began a siege against it. 3 years later, during the 6th year of King Hezekiah's reign and the 9th year of King Hoshea's reign in Israel, Samaria fell. At that time, the king of Assyria exiled the Israelites to Assyria and placed them in colonies in Hala, along the banks of the Habor River in Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. For they refused to listen to the Lord their God and obey him. Instead, they violated his covenant, all the laws that Moses, the Lord's servant, had commanded them to obey. So, in case you forgot why Israel was taken over, or why God let Israel be taken over by the Assyrians, there you have it. So, I don't know if it had stated it outright before, though, that Assyria had a different king, you know, between when the invasion started and when Israel actually got taken over. But yeah, that happened. And in the meantime, it seems like the Assyrians also were laying siege to Judah, probably more specifically Jerusalem. Did it say that outright? Well, okay, it says they attacked the city of Samaria and began a siege against it. So, sorry, maybe I was just misremembering what I read for a second there. Yeah, okay. So, that paragraph is just talking about the siege of Samaria and taking that over. And essentially gaining control of the whole kingdom of Israel along with it. Okay. Now, based on this subtitle here, we get to the invasion of Judah. But, on to verse 13. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, King Sennacherib of Assyria came to attack the fortified towns of Judah and conquered them. King Hezekiah sent this message to the king of Assyria at Lachish. I have done wrong. I will pay whatever tribute money you demand if you will only withdraw. The king of Assyria then demanded a settlement of more than 11 tons of silver and 1 ton of gold. To gather this amount, King Hezekiah used all the silver stored in the temple of the Lord and in the palace treasury. Hezekiah even stripped the gold from the doors of the Lord's temple and from the doorposts he had overlaid with gold, and he gave it all to the Assyrian king. Feels like this is, I don't know, the third time that things from the temple and or the palace have been taken away and sent off to some other king just to appease them and keep them from invading. And now it's like practically getting stripped bare of any signs of silver or gold. You know, especially if it hadn't been replenished between the previous time and this one. So, yeah. No surprise, Assyria invades Judah, and Hezekiah is doing this just to try and get the Assyrians to back off. So it says here the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign was 701 BC. Some might say BCE. Same difference, as my older sister would say. But, like, it's interesting that they actually have a designated year for this. Like, I guess maybe there are other historical records that can corroborate with it and verify that, okay, yeah, this is the particular year that the Assyrians invaded Judah. Which, even just based off of that, then you can extrapolate a whole bunch of estimated years of events within the Bible, potentially. Anyway, so it just says, he came to attack the fortified towns of Judah and conquered them. Didn't say which towns specifically, but with them being fortified, they weren't just, you know, puny little villages on the outskirts or anything like that. That's probably just giving the Hebrew measurements of the silver and the gold. Yeah. So it's basically metric tons that it's talking about there. But it also, in the note, gives you the number of talents that it was. Anyway. Alright. On to verse 17. Nevertheless, the king of Assyria sent his commander-in-chief, his field commander, and his chief of staff from Lachish with a huge army to confront King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. The Assyrians took up a position beside the aqueduct that feeds water into the upper pool, near the road leading to the field where cloth is washed. They summoned King Hezekiah, but the king sent these officials to meet with them. Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, palace administrator, Shebna, the court secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the royal historian. Okay, so, like, despite this act of appeasement from Hezekiah, the Assyrian king is still, like, sending out commanders and, you know, basically making a rather threatening move towards Jerusalem. So the, you know, Assyrian leaders and probably their troops with them take up their post outside Jerusalem, and then they ask for Hezekiah, but he sends out his own officials. Not necessarily the same type of officials, though, because it's talking about the palace administrator, the court secretary, and the royal historian. So, it's more like he's wanting to make a, he's probably wanting to initiate a more peaceful move here than what Assyria seems to be coming at him with. Let's see what the notes say here. Or the Rabshakeh. Also in chapter 18, verse 19, 26. Anyway. I guess maybe Chief of Staff is a rough translation of that from the Hebrew. And then this note here says bleached instead of washed, but one could argue bleaching is a type of washing, or cleaning anyway. So they took up a position beside the aqueduct that feeds water into the upper pool near the road leading to the field where cloth is washed. Okay. So this wasn't exactly just any old spot that they, posted up on. Okay, anyway. Moving on to verse 19. Then the Assyrian king's chief of staff told them to give this message to Hezekiah. This is what the great king of Assyria says. What are you trusting in that makes you so confident? Do you think that mere words can substitute for military skill and strength? Who are you counting on that you have rebelled against me? On Egypt? If you lean on Egypt, it will be like a reed that splinters beneath your weight and pierces your hand. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, is completely unreliable. But perhaps you will say to me, we are trusting in the Lord our God. But isn't he the one who was insulted by Hezekiah? Didn't Hezekiah tear down his shrines and altars and make everyone in Judah and Jerusalem worship only at the altar here in Jerusalem? I'll tell you what. Strike a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you can find that many men to ride on them. With your tiny army, how can you think of challenging even the weakest contingent of my master's troops? Even with the help of Egypt's chariots and charioteers. What's more, do you think we have invaded your land without the Lord's direction? The Lord himself told us, attack this land and destroy it. So all that was a message from the Assyrians' chief of staff, and basically kind of calling out Hezekiah like, what do you hope to accomplish here? How do you think this is going to end? Because the way I see it, there's no way this ends well for you. But where he is definitely wrong is in this section right here in verse 22. Because the stuff that Hezekiah tore down were the other, like the other idols and things like that. But I guess, the Assyrians and possibly other people around them thought that these must all be, different things dedicated to God, to the Lord, their God. But he was doing the opposite. He was actually following the Lord's commands by tearing down all those things. So, since I mean, maybe he's just misinformed about that part. It's not necessarily true that he's outright lying about it intentionally, but that also makes you question a little bit the part where he claims to have guidance from the Lord about attacking Judah. Okay, so after this big threat from the Assyrian chief of staff, we get to verse 26. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, Shebna, and Joah said to the Assyrian chief of staff, "Please speak to us in Aramaic, for we understand it well. Don't speak in Hebrew, for the people on the wall will hear." But Sennacherib's chief of staff replied, "Do you think my master sent this message only to you and your master? He wants all the people to hear it, for when we put this city under siege, they will suffer along with you. They will be so hungry and thirsty that they will eat their own dung and drink their own urine." So they make it sound like they're wanting to keep it kind of, on the down low, so to speak. But the chief of staff is just like, no, this isn't a private matter. This is supposed to be a declaration for all the people to hear, because they're all going to be affected by it. No, and they said, don't speak in Hebrew. The Hebrew more literally would say, in the dialect of Judah. But, same kind of meaning. Okay. Not too much else to say about that section. Verse 28. Then the chief of staff stood and shouted in Hebrew to the people on the wall, "Listen to this message from the great king of Assyria. This is what the king says. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He will never be able to rescue you from my power. Don't let him fool you into trusting in the Lord by saying, 'The Lord will surely rescue us.' This city will never fall into the hands of the Assyrian king. Don't listen to Hezekiah. These are the terms the king of Assyria is offering. Make peace with me. Open the gates and come out. Then each of you can continue eating from your own grapevine and fig tree and drinking from your own well. Then I will arrange to take you to another land like this one, a land of grain and new wine, bread and vineyards, olive groves and honey. Choose life instead of death. Don't listen to Hezekiah when he tries to mislead you by saying, 'The Lord will rescue us.' Have the gods of any other nations ever saved their people from the king of Assyria? What happened to the gods of Hamath and Arpad? And what about the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Ivah? Did any god rescue Samaria from my power? What god of any nation has ever been able to save its people from my power? So what makes you think that the Lord can rescue Jerusalem from me?" So this chief of staff seems like almost like he likes the sound of his own voice. He really likes to talk and make these big proclamations. And I mean, while clearly Assyria has taken over many lands, it's almost like he's trying to, coerce the people into just willingly defecting or submitting to Assyria before he then, goes in and sweeps away whoever's left, making them even weaker and making it less of a problem to do the latter part of that. One could argue the chief of staff here, while he likes to talk, is also part of the brains of the operation. So, after he says all this, we get to verse 36. But the people were silent and did not utter a word, because Hezekiah had commanded them, "Do not answer him." Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, Shebna, the court secretary, and Joel, son of Asaph, the royal historian, went back to Hezekiah. They tore their clothes in despair, and they went in to see the king and told him what the Assyrian chief of staff had said. So he makes all these big threats, the chief of staff, and then Hezekiah's delegation kind of comes back to report to him, and they're like, "We're doomed. There's no way that we're getting out of this with any kind of good situation." At least I would assume that's the motivation for, tearing their clothes and whatnot. I mean, it says it was in despair. So, yeah. I don't really have any other thoughts on that. So that's going to do it for 2 Kings chapter 18. Alright, so King Hezekiah is doing good things. Even went further than most of the other kings of Judah and tore down all the idols and things like that. But, now Judah is being threatened by Assyria. It seems like they've already lost a few significant towns. And then there's this exchange between, Judah's representatives and Assyria's representatives. And this one guy is just a big loudmouth. He really likes to make these big claims about just how powerful and great Assyria is. And, honestly, there is some truth to it, though. Because, nothing has been able to stop them so far. So, Hezekiah's messengers hear this. They are, about to take the news back to the king. And they're like, "We're doomed. What are we going to do?" And we'll have to wait and see what happens from there. As always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel to get updates when I post new videos. Look down in the description for links to social media pages and all sorts of good stuff like that. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts or questions you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.